Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Fear It Goes. We have an incredible interview this week. I am so excited to share his story with you. His name is Tom Barendragt. Tom is a hockey player. At the young age of 13, he played for his national team in the Netherlands and then came to the U.S. At the age of 14, he tried out for the USHL, to which he was given offers for several teams. And at the age of 15, he signed on with the Colarado Thiunderbirds. And it was a very short period of time after that Tom's life took a turn. And you'll now hear about that in the podcast. I hope you enjoy part 1. Welcome to Fear It Goes, the podcast all about taking your fears with you and doing it anyway. I'm your host, Brandy Taylor. Tom, I want to welcome you to Fear It Goes. Tell me your story. So let's start from the beginning when you got scouted, right, and what you got scouted for and how it all began.
So it began a long time ago. So I started playing hockey at the age of say 7 or 8 back home in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, where I grew up. And I did really well. I moved up teams very quickly. I was in the national team pretty quickly, in their U16 team, their U18 team. Even though I was like 13 or 14 years old. At the age of 14, I already signed in our pro league, which we call the Elite League, or the Eredivisie in Dutch. And I mean, that was a great accomplishment, but I knew there was more to hockey than, playing pro hockey at 14 years old in the Netherlands. And it was fun, but it was not the thing I was looking for. And I've been fortunate. Right. No. Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to be going to the U.S. like every year with my parents and my family, just to travel around, and also to train here with a guy named Zach Sikic that I met when I was about 11 years old. And I've been training with him then for those years after that. And he told me once I signed, at the top level in the Netherlands, he's like, dude, you gotta come over to the U.S. There's no point of view still playing in Europe. And that's what I did. I came to the US. I trained there, and I got drafted to the USHL for the Sioux Falls Stampede, which is like the top league in the US for guys until the age of 21. Obviously, I was still 14, 15 at the time, so I wasn't going to play there right away, but I did participate in their tryout. And that's where I got multiple offers from several teams in the AAA Tier 1 Elite League, which is like the highest league for guys until the age of 18. And then at 15 years old, I signed with the Colorado Thiunderbirds that are located in Denver, which was a Tier 1 U18 AAA team. And that went all went very well. Played there for a season. Sometimes I flew back to do some national team stuff, because I also played several world championships with our 18 team and our world junior team, our U20s team. And then after that season, I decided to go back to the Netherlands, because obviously I hadn't finished high school yet. And, in the Netherlands, and for sure in Canada and the US too, you need to finish high school. Yeah. You can't just quit. So,
nor should
right. Then that's kind of what I did. So I had to go back. So I had to do 2 years in 1 year, because I missed a year. So I kind of skipped one. And somehow I graduated that year when I was 17. And that's when I decided, to go back to the U.S. because that past season I still played hockey, but I had to go back to our pro league in the Netherlands. That was then a new league because we also shared it with Belgium now. So now it was the Netherlands and Belgium. But like I said, I graduated, and then I signed with the Madison Capitals up in Wisconsin. Yeah. And that was going to be, my comeback to the U.S. and play there. And if everything went well there, my plan was going to be, play college hockey, and from there on out, see if I can make the NHL or some other pro league. So I went back to the U.S., but that's kind of where it all went wrong pretty quickly. I had been feeling like pretty sick. Like I had fevers at night and like night sweats and just lack of energy most of the time.
When did that start?
I think that was about 8 weeks before I went to the US. I think it was the beginning of the summer. I think
so you were 17, you just graduated.
Yeah, so that would be July, summer 2016, July-ish, something like that. So I think I just signed with the Madison Capitals, and I think I just went on vacation to like Spain and Curacao, just hanging out with friends. And that's when I started noticing like weird stuff. And that was around July, and I started noticing like just a bunch of weird stuff. And I went to several doctors. First in Spain, I went to a guy because I had a lot of back pains as well, and they started looking at it. They were like, "Oh, it's some injury or some injury you have because of hockey." So like, all right, sure, because I've had many back problems and like growing problems and stuff like that. So obviously I believed them. So I went through like acupuncture, which are like little needles and stuff like that to relieve the pain.
Did it help?
Yeah, for like a day, and then it all came back. So that didn't work. So then I went back to the Netherlands, and that was like one day before I had to go to the US. I went to like an actual like good doctor, and they were like, "Oh no, it's just pain," and same thing as basically the other guy said. So you gave me like pain medication, which in the end even made it worse. But then I went to the US, and the medication obviously didn't work at all. And I just moved in with my new host family up in Madison. Like I barely knew these people.
Yeah.
I just had like a lot of pain. Like I could barely function. If I had the pain, I could barely function, but it would just kick in. It's not like something I had throughout the day. It would just usually at night would just kick in. So that's when I went to a chiropractor, of the Madison Capitals. And he started looking at it, and they started like treating it with like electricity stuff. I'm not sure what it actually was. It was like some new type of treatment stuff. So to make sure the pain goes away. But it kind of worked for like 1 or 2 days again, and then it would all come back. And then I started having during practice, I noticed that I just started I just had no energy, and I started puking during practice, like 7 times at practice, stuff like that. I mean, in hockey, we're pretty tough. So if you puke during a practice, especially the beginning of the season, because you're maybe not in that great of shape or whatever, which you should be, but it happens.
Right.
I mean, we don't really complain or something about that, but this was ridiculous. Even my coach was like,
That's
what have you been doing? Have you been doing?
Partying every night.
Right. That's what he told me. I'm like, no, I did not. I did not at all. I worked out all summer. Like I was in shape. But yeah, I just did not feel good at all. And then I went up to like northern Wisconsin to spend a weekend with my new host family to like kind of get to know him. Because like I said, I barely knew him. And I was like jet skiing and like water skiing, and like I was just having fun and stuff. And I one of those days I started like looking at my like legs and like the inside of my arms, and I started having like bruises everywhere. So that was kind of when I figured like something is really, really, really wrong. And I come out of a family full of doctors, so I said. And they were all like, "Oh no, nothing's no, there's nothing going on." Because I sent them like pictures of like my arms, and they were blue, like it looked really bad. Yeah, they were fully bruised. And the first thing I saw when I looked at the bruising is that I had one bruise that I could explain. All the other bruises were just there out of nowhere. They would just be there overnight. So it was not like something I bumped into something and it was a bruise. But one of the bruises I picked up already like 3 weeks before that. That was my coach who shot me like right at the arm, and it was on my tricep. Yeah. But the bruise had not. It was still the exact same. So, and then other bruises started coming in that, weren't supposed to be there.
Right.
And that's kind of when I was like, God, this is really weird. And I started having like petechia, we call it. It's like little dots, little like blood dots, like red bluish they were. And I started having like underneath my eyes and on my arms, my legs. And that's when I was like, all right, now it's done. I don't care what anyone tells me that nothing's going on, but this is not good. So that's when I figured that I had to go into the emergency or the urgency emergency room. And I went there with the dad of my mom.
Fostering family.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it was like the grandfather or something. So barely knew the guy as well. He drove me there. And then, they looked at my blood, and then right away they said, come with us. And I had to go sit in some room there. And then, the doctor came in, and I already looked at his face, and it didn't look really well. So I was like, all right, see what he has to say. And that's kind of when he told me that they were almost certain that it was going to be leukemia. And at the time, I had no clue what leukemia was at all. I was a pretty smart kid in school, but biology and stuff, those were subjects that I dropped really quickly. So
not anymore.
Right. So I was like, I had no clue what it meant. So I was like, sure, give me some medication and I'm out of here, because I don't have any time for this right. stuff, right? So, and that's when right. But I saw from the reaction from the grandfather that it was not good, because he like almost fell backwards from his seat. And he immediately ran out of the room and started calling people. So that's kind of what I figured, this is not good. So, and then the doctor asked me, because I was still 17 at the time. It was September 4th. I turned 18. I was going to turn 18 on September 10th. So in the U.S., especially when you're not from the U.S., there's a lot of paperwork you have to go through when somebody's not, 18 or older. So the grandfather had to sign all the stuff and blah, blah, blah. And he was not really, allowed to do anything because I was a minor and he was not my actual father.
Right.
So they had to call my parents right away. Somehow they were awake. And they started telling him about, what was the situation like. And then immediately, before I even knew it, I was in an ambulance going back to Madison on a 3-hour trip. And the next morning I was operated on my arm, and they put like a PICC line in, which is like a line in your arm. And before I knew it, I was attached to chemo. So, that's kind of how I was introduced to leukemia.
So, did your parents I'm guessing that's your parents saying, yes, please do whatever needs to be done? Because that sounds like it was a very rush and you weren't very privy to this information.
Right. So my dad was already there the next morning. He, because when he got the call, he went straight to the airport and he flew to Madison.
How could you not?
Right. Yeah. So by the time I woke up, he was there. And I still really didn't have a clue what it actually was. I didn't really want to Google it, because that's usually not something you want to be doing in that situation. So I didn't do that. But what they did start telling me was like, we need to start treating you right now, because normally within like the type of leukemia I had, which was acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is a very, very like aggressive type of blood cancer. Usually you should be dead within like 6 to 8 weeks, and they had never seen like such slow like blood levels. Like my platelets, I only have like 6 left, and you need to have like 150 or between 150 and like 300, and you need to have right. And I had no hemoglobin left. And I should have been dead for like weeks.
Just like, how are you standing?
Right. I mean, I was on a jet ski that day. Yeah. And I was like, just having fun. I mean, I noticed that I wasn't having the energy that I normally would have. But I mean, a little flick to my head could have, killed me at the time, because I had no blood in my body. And there were really supplies. I could still walk and stuff. Most people should not even be able to open their eyes. That's what they said. And I was like, I feel shitty, but I can still kind of do my things.
This is what it means to push through.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's kind of what I told them. Right. And That's kind of what I told him. But that was because I was in such good shape. And I mean, I had been working out all my life, basically, and especially that summer because I want to be ready for the season.
Right.
But that Sunday, that September 4th, that was literally one day before my actual practice started. So I didn't even get to meet my team at all. I met I think 4 players of my team, and the next evening, instead of being at the rink for first practice, I was attached to chemo. So that was not really a good deal. But yeah, I was treated in the U.S. I think for only about 3 weeks because U.S. healthcare is a little expensive.
Just a touch.
Yeah, just a little bit, so I was treated there for 3 weeks. I had a whole bunch of chemos. Even on the day of my birthday, they even gave me chemo. They didn't give me a day off, and that chemo actually almost killed me because there's chemos. There's always a chance that you're allergic to some medication, and this chemo you have a below 5% chance of being allergic to it. And of course, I was in that 5%. So they had to save me with an EpiPen, which I had to carry around all the time as well.
Wow.
Yeah, the chemo hadn't even touched my blood yet, and I already couldn't breathe anymore and stuff like that. So imagine what it would have done if the chemo actually went inside my line. Right. So that was a pretty shitty birthday. They still gave me a birthday cake, but that didn't really help.
that you wanted to eat at that time. I'm positive you wanted to eat that cake.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I was treated there so for 3 weeks, and because I was allergic to that chemo, I had to get the chemo or a sister version or a brother version, whatever you would call it, of that chemo, and that was only available not throughout IV but only throughout injections. And a half an hour of chemo, like a full chemo, IV chemo, was, I had to do 18 injections. 18, and I had to get the chemo 4 times. So those were a lot of injections, about 72. And those are not small needles, I can tell you that.
Where do they inject those?
In my legs. Yeah, because that's where the most mass muscle was. Yeah, but there was muscle everywhere. So everything hurt. Muscles just hurt. They can't really numb the area or something. It's gonna hurt.
So when you're going through all this treatment, this has got to be terrifying. It's not only the unknown, but it's you're forced into something that you know nothing about, and it's life or death.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even have an option, but I was always pretty positive. And I always told the doctors whatever percentages they come up with. I didn't really care what they said at all. I just went with the flow, and I knew I couldn't really do anything about the fact that I got the disease, and that obviously you're undergoing the treatment. I can't kick leukemia out of my body or something, so it's letting the doctors do their job. And most of the time, it's just a mental game. That's how I looked at it. Being an athlete, that's tough, and that's a tough world. But this is a whole another level. So that it shapes you as a person.
It's interesting that you just said that it's a mind game. It is a mind game.
Yeah,
we are defeated or not defeated in our heads first before anything happens externally.
Right. Exactly, and that's why a lot of people are always there's always a lot of fuss about, do you beat cancer or do you not beat cancer? Obviously you don't beat cancer by kicking his butt and kicking out of your body. That doesn't exist. But I am a big believer in that you if your health or if your mind is in the right place, that will help you a lot, definitely. And I just always stay positive and believe that I would get out of it, and that really helped me. And I think it's more, like I said, a mindset and a mental game than the other stuff, because the chemos and stuff, that's going to happen, and whatever happens physically, that's up to the doctors and up to a bunch of luck as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So there obviously had to have been days when things didn't feel so optimistic, and when you're throwing up or whatever, because I'm assuming that that's what chemo does. I don't know if it's radiation or chemo that makes you throw up. I never get those two.
Both.
Both.
Mostly chemo, I would say. I had both, so I can talk out of experience. I from chemo, I was more. I was really really sick, like really sick. Like I would have hours where I would puke at least 10 times. It was bad. Yeah.
Okay, so days like that, they're rotten, they're horrible. The experience is horrendously bad. How do you stay optimistic? How do you stay in that healthy mindset? Because man, oh man, that's where most people break down and say, "Screw this."
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's what most people do. And most people don't really find anything to hold on to. And what I was obviously always told myself that I was going to be back. I was going to play hockey. And I always had a vision board for myself up as well,
Nice.
where I would post stuff that, in a year time, I'll be, doing this again, doing that again, or whatever. And that really helped me. And I also looked at other figures that inspired me.
Figures, what do you mean by that?
Like just other people. Maybe motivational speakers like Tony Robbins, but also other figures that had nothing to do with cancer or even motivational speakers, but I like their mentality and the way they were. And I just, I started looking at guys like that. And that really helped my mindset as well. And I always had a mindset of a winner because I hate losing, especially as an athlete.
That doesn't sound like the kid that got into hockey at the highest levels at the age of 30.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of that helped me too. Like my athlete mindset that I already had like a winner's mentality, and driving through adversity and overcoming adversity,
pushing.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. Sorry, I just didn't mean to totally interrupt your story. I was just very curious how you keep that. Okay, so we move forward. So we've gone through chemo, and now what? And you said you left the States, so you went back to the Netherlands?
Yes. So I was only in the States for like 3 weeks, and then obviously due to some medical or some insurance issues, I had to go back. And I obviously wasn't able to fly or wasn't allowed to fly. So what they first did was send a private jet, which sounds cool and all, but you had to fly. I had to fly from like Madison to like New York to like Greenland to like Iceland to like the Netherlands, which is like a 20-hour flight. So when I heard that, that's when I told them like, yeah, that's not really going to happen. I'm not going to be doing that. So what they did is they like bought the whole first class of a regular flight, and I was there with like doctors and just me, and then other people in economy or comfort or whatever, and I had like the full like first class to myself.
So they basically had you like strapped down to a bed, or how did that work?
I was just in a regular seat. Like at first class, they're already beds. I mean, you can decline the seat all the way, so it's kind of like a bed.
Okay.
And then I flew to the Netherlands, but I was always wearing like a thing in front of my mouth so to cover everything, so I wouldn't get sick from other people,
right.
And stuff like that. So you could definitely see there was something wrong with me at the time. I hadn't lost my hair yet, so you couldn't really see that. But I was always wearing like a mouth guard and stuff like that. So then I was in the Netherlands and then directly thrown into an ambulance and driven to the hospital and back in Rotterdam and thrown into an isolation cell, which I was already a little bit familiar with. And then, that's what kind of where I spend a whole bunch of time, like on and off, but I would say about 7 months in total of treatment. And I've spent most of the time in an isolation cell.
Because they're concerned about illness, right?
Yes, because all the chemo
symptoms like zero.
Yeah, absolutely right. Zero. So obviously that meant I had to be in isolation most of the time. If people wanted to visit me, which most of the time they really couldn't, usually they have to wear like a suit or something, or they had to be 100% healthy or whatever, because otherwise they could not come close to me.
Right.
So I went through
hard in itself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's a
Yeah,
mind trip.
right. I know that was a lot of fun. Sometimes I couldn't even see what was in my room because they were like wearing this like weird ass suit. But yeah, so yeah, and that was about 7 months of treatment through from like September through like February, March ish. Um, and I actually in those months I had, I think, about, I would say, 8 chemos a week, something like that.
What's standard?
I don't know, like maybe once a month or once a week,
So
something like
very
that.
aggressive treatment.
Yes, yes. I had every single chemotherapy they have available in the Netherlands. That's what I know. They maybe have more here, but I've had every single one in the Netherlands. So when people message me now on Instagram, they're like, "Oh, I'm on this." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know that."
Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah, I've done
this
that.
one will do this.
Yeah, it sucks. And yeah, so yeah, I've had like every single chemotherapy. So for like 7 months, and then I actually got to go on like a Make-A-Wish trip because officially I was 17. I was 17 when I got the disease, like when I was diagnosed. So it was 6 days before I turned 18. So I was still eligible for that. And I got to choose, because I was pretty sick at the time when they were going to do something. So they were like, I mean, we can also do it when you are, healthy and recovered again. But I didn't really know if I was going to recover ever again. So,
right.
Because I wanted to go, some crazy place, but I wasn't allowed to leave the country or anything. So, so it was like, I either, choose to do something now, or I wait and then I get to do something maybe even way cooler, but maybe I'm not there. So I was like, all right, we'll do something now then. So I got to, drive around I brought like all of my best friends, and we went like with like a limo. We were driving around all day throughout the Netherlands, and we went to like, some fancy restaurant, and we did a whole bunch of cool stuff. I can't even remember exactly what we did, but it was a cool day. So I got to spend that with my friends. And then, well, March, or like February, March, they already decided I had to go through a stem cell transplant as well, or bone marrow transplant, whatever you want to call it.
Which is excellent that you were in the Netherlands, because they don't do that in the U.S. They do that here, though, in Canada.
They don't do it in the U.S.?
No. Stem cell is illegal there. They don't allow that. So it's interesting. Different countries have different rules around stem cell. So you were in the right place.
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh, that was interesting. So I had to go and do that, which I didn't really know what it was, but I was like, sure, because the other route was going to be 2 years of chemo. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that route is lighter, because a stem cell bone marrow transplant is a lot tougher road than doing 2 years of chemo. And 2 years of chemo is already really, really bad. But stem cell bone marrow transplant has a lot more risk and, a lot more consequences. But if they pull it off right, if everything goes right, the chances of it coming back are way smaller than when you go through 2 years of chemo.
Right. Because bone marrow, I didn't know that you could actually, very much like an organ transplant with bone marrow, your body can reject it.
It's not like, they can reject it, but it's not like they will take somebody's bone marrow and place it in my body. It's not like an operation. Right. So what they do is they kill my bone marrow by just a shit ton of chemo. And in my case, they also did radiation, which they normally don't do for, leukemia. Like, radiation is usually used for cancers that are just in one spot, like breast cancer or testicle cancer, or something like that.
And that concludes part 1. So tune in next week to hear the rest of Tom's interview. And surprise, we have a follow-up interview with him coming as a part 3. Super exciting, because Tom has some very interesting things going on in his life. Can't wait to share that with you. If you are loving Fear It Goes, which of course you are, please leave us 5 stars and comment below. So until next week, my beautiful souls, thank you so much for listening, and have an extraordinary week.